Yes, so last time we were discussing about Dama ben Asina, Kibbud Avim, honoring father and mother by a non-Jew. And today we're going to learn a little bit about how different rabbis practiced and kept this mitzvah. Page 56. Another incident that illustrates Dama ben Asina's devotion to honoring his parents. Ki asa Rav Dimi Amar. When Rav Dimi came to Bavel from Eretz Yisrael, he said, one time Dama ben Asina was dressed in a gold embroidered silk cloak and was sitting among the nobles of Rome. When his mother came, she ripped his cloak off, hit him on his head, and spat in his face. He got the full treatment, yet he did not shame her. In fact, her slipper fell off and he handed her to her that she would not suffer distress. So before we learn what Dama ben Asina did for his father, he didn't want to wake him up even though he would lose a lot of money. Here we see how even though his mother did this, embarrassed him in public, he didn't embarrass her back. And he even helped her when her slipper fell off. So that's pretty much concludes the story of Dama ben Asina, which we spent 2 classes on. An insight regarding the mitzvah of honoring parents. Avimi, the son of Reb Avo, taught in a brisa. One can feed his father expensive pisyon birds, yet his acts drive the son from the world to come. So even though he's giving his father from the best, he's giving him pisyon birds, which could be expensive and a delicacy, and yet this takes the son away from Olam Haba, the world to come. And one can have his father grind with a millstone, which entails hard labor, yet this act brings the son to the world to come. So how does this make sense? He's making his father work hard, grinding with a millstone, and yet this brings him to Olam Haba, brings him to the world to come. So let's see in the footnotes. 2 actually. This fatty bird, what is this pisyon bird? This fatty bird was a delicacy from the family of Slav that fell for the Jewish people in the wilderness. Quail. Aruch defines it as, how do you read this? Pheasant. So that is he's giving his father from these pisyon birds. 3, even though the son served his father a delicious meal, he'll be punished if he does so begrudgingly. Providing for one's parents in a degrading manner certainly does not constitute honoring them. So it's not just what you give them, but it's the way you treat them when you're honoring them. So even if you give them the best foods, but if you give it in a degrading way, that's not the mitzvah of Kibbud Avim. However, the opposite, 4, if the son honors his father with encouraging, comforting words, gently convincing him that his effort is needed for their livelihood, the son will be rewarded. Rashi cites Yerushalmi, which records incidents that illustrate both parts of Avimi's statement. A son customarily fed his father pisyon birds. Once the father asked his son how he could afford to do so. The son replied, "Old man, what do you care? Chew and eat." And the son thus demonstrated that caring for his father was burdensome to him. So here, that's an example of where he's treating his father in a very disgusting way, although he's giving him the best of foods. Another person who worked at a mill had an elderly father. One day the king drafted the father for work. The son told his aging parent, "Father, you work here on the millstone, and I shall go in your stead into the king's service, which has no time limit." So over here, he's actually replacing his father. He's telling his father to work hard, but instead he's going to be drafted. So a lot of times you can't judge by what the son is doing for his father. It's about the respect, the way you do it, the way you treat your father. So this is a teaching from Avimi. His name is Avimi. Not sure how popular he is in general, but here he tells us things about Kibbud Avim. And if you just think about the word Avimi, what do you Av, and maybe Aim also. Avim, father and mother, Avimi. Avaim. And so here we see, so let's continue back inside. Rebbe Avo said, Avimi, my son, is an example of someone who fulfilled the mitzvah of honoring one's father. So not only did he preach, but here we see that he practiced what he preached. He spoke about kibbud avim. We just had a teaching from him, and here we see what he did. How do we see his example of kibbud avim? Avimi had 5 ordained sons in the lifetime of his father Rebbe Avo. So this is a great accomplishment. He has 5 sons that all have smicha. They're all rabbis. Nevertheless, whenever Rebbe Avo came calling at Avimi's door, Avimi himself would run and open it, calling while he was on his way, "Yes, I'm coming to open the door. Yes, I'm coming to open the door," until he got there. So he was easily able to ask one of his sons to do it, but he preferred to do it himself. Here we see the importance of honoring your father and mother yourself instead of asking someone else to do it. And so here we see a demonstration of kibbud avim by Avimi. One day, Reb Avahu told Avimi, "Bring us water to drink." While Avimi was bringing the water, Reb Avahu dozed off. Avimi bent over and waited for him to awake, even though it took a long time. As the reward for honoring his father, Avimi received divine assistance. And while he was waiting, he expounded the psalm in Tehillim, which begins, "A song of Asaf. O Hashem, O God, the nations have entered into your inheritance. They have defiled the sanctuary of your holiness. They have turned Yerushalayim into heaps of rubble," which he was unable to explain earlier. So this is an interesting story that he's in the middle of doing this mitzvah of honoring his father. He's trying to bring the drink. His father dozes off. And in the middle, he gets this divine assistance, and he's able to understand this psalm in Tehillim on a whole different level during the time that his father is sleeping and he's holding the glass of water there. So there's a lot of interesting things about this story here. Why specifically this psalm? How does this relate to the mitzvah that he was doing? And what was the divine assistance? What did he understand that he was unable to explain earlier? So let's look at footnote 7. See Rashi and Tosfos. Rashi cites an alternative explanation of the Gemara. Avimi's inspiration involved only the first verse of the psalm. Since the verse describes the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, Avimi wondered why it begins Mizmor L'Asaf, a song of Asaf, rather than Kina L'Asaf, a lamentation of Asaf. If you look at this kapitel, Ayin Tes 79, it's speaking about the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. So why would he call it a song, like something that it's more like a happy song? Kina would be more appropriate, a lamentation. Avimi explained that in a certain aspect, the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash was cause for song, in that Hashem spared his nation by redirecting his wrath from the Jews to the wood and stones of his own house. So Hashem was obviously upset at the Jewish people for the different sins that they were doing, and instead of Hashem letting it out on the Jewish people, he let it out on the house, on the Beis HaMikdash. So that's why, even though from one hand it's something which is very sad, the destruction, from the other hand, the fact that the Jews were spared, that's a reason for Mizmor, a reason for happiness. Now, see Tosfos, Mari Beirav, Pnei Yeshua, and Ben Yehuda for other interpretations of the verse. According to Meiri's version, he resolved the difficulty in 12 different ways. So this question of Mizmor L'Asaf, why is it a song? Is it a song or is it a lamentation? He was able to explain this in 12 different ways while his father was sleeping in the middle of this kibbud avim, in the middle of honoring the father and mother. So I was fascinated by this number, 12 different ways. Yeah. So we're going to try to go into 12 different ways of explaining this Mizmor, explaining this psalm. Ready for the 12? I'm not sure that this is what Avimi was thinking, but possibly this is the...
You came up with 12, let's hear them.
But I didn't make them up. I just found 12 different commentaries explaining this. So it might have been what Avimi was thinking. Maybe yes, maybe not. We'll see. Very, very interesting.
Tonight I'm going to send you the newsletter, so you'll have it tomorrow.
Perfect. So the words for this is called Tresar Ape. These are the 12 faces that Avimi. We know that the Torah actually has 70 faces, 70 different ways of explaining. But over here, Avimi had 12 ways of explaining this. So the first thing that we just mentioned from Rashi comes from a medrash in Eicha. Eicha is speaking about Lamentations. And Rashi, we just read it in the short version, but we'll see the full version from Eicha Rabbah. This is the medrash on Eicha. So it says in Eicha, Kila Hashem es chamasai. Hashem has finished. He let out his whole anger. Shafa charoin apa. He poured out his fury. Vayatzes eish b'tzion. And he turned on a fire on Zion, on the Beis HaMikdash, or Yerushalayim. So this is the pasuk. Now, Ksiv Mizmor L'Asaf, Elokim bo goyim benachal asecha. This is the psalm that we mentioned before. There's a song for Asaf. Hashem, the nations have entered your nachla, your inheritance. Lo hava kra tzarich lemeimar elo b'chi la'asaf. The pasuk should have said b'chi, crying for Asaf, nehi la'asaf, kina la'asaf. These are all words of crying, of mourning. Ma aimer mizmar. Nehi is another type of mourning. It's kina is a lamentation. Nehi is another word of kina.
Is there another context that I might recognize?
I'd have to check up what the exact difference between nehi and kina.
Can you tell me another place where the word nehi is used?
It's usually, it comes together with kina, like nehi the kina. It says, there's a pasuk that says, "V'lameidna b'naisechem nehi." It will teach your daughters to wail or to mourn. It's
Pasuk in Torah?
no. The isha ru'usa kina, and a woman will teach her friend kina, which is a lamentation. Okay. So I have to look into the difference between nehi and kina. So he says like this: "Elamashal melech." So what is the example of a king? She'asa beis chuppah lebnai. He makes a house for his son to live, or where he will get married and live afterwards. It was a common thing that the father prepares a special house, a beis chuppah, a place for his son to live. He prepares it for him, and after, when his son gets married, they move into this home. V'siyada, he plastered it. V'chiyada v'tzeira, and he designs it. He makes beautiful carvings into the house. He prepares it, a beautiful house for his son. But then what happens? V'yatza b'nai l'tarbus ra. The son goes off into mischief, into trouble, and he goes off the straight path. What happens? So he's not getting married or planning to move into this house, and the father is very upset at his son. Miyad Allah hamalach l'chuppah. The king goes up to the house. This is a beis chuppah. V'karas havilois. He tears the curtains. V'shiber esakanim, and he breaks the sticks, the poles. So the king is very upset. He says, "What do I need this house for?"
Kanim and kino are very similar.
Yeah, that's true. And we'll see soon another thing. V'natal pedagog shaloi. So pedagog is like the mentor of the son, or the one who takes care.
Ruben, does that word jump off the page at you?
Pedagogue.
Yeah.
Pedagogical.
Oh, yeah.
So here,
the word
pedagogue. So this is the pedagogue of the son, the one who's the mentor, or the one.
So I guess they use Latin in this.
Or maybe it comes from, maybe it's in both languages. So he takes ibuv shalkanim. He takes a flute of reeds, v'haya mizamer. He's singing with this flute reeds. So what we're picturing here, the father is totally upset. He's tearing up the curtains, and then the pedagogue of the son is going and playing music with, I don't know what type of flute this is, but a flute of reeds. Kanim. Again, the word kanim. So we're talking about kina, kanim. Amr lei hamelech. So the king says...
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble understanding the sentence, Vanata pedagog shelo avivu.
Ibuv Shalkanim. So the pedagogue of the son takes Ibuv Shalkanim. Ibuv Shalkanim is a flute of reeds, a reed flute. V'haya Mizamer, and he starts singing, he starts playing.
What does Vanata pedagog shelo mean? It means that this is how he expresses his regret to his father?
So there's the father, the son, and then we have this pedagogue, which is another person. It's a closely related to the son, which means this is the person, besides for the father, he had someone who was his teacher, his mentor, someone like that. That's the pedagogue. And he's witnessing what's happening, and he's singing. So Amrulai, so people told this pedagogue, Hamelech hafach l'pasei shel b'nai. The king has turned over the chuppah of his son. Va'ata yeshiv u'mezamer, and you're sitting and singing. How is this appropriate reaction to what's happening? Amar lahem, so he says, Mezamer ani, I am singing shahafach l'pasei shel b'nai, that the king turned over and ruined the chuppah of his son. V'loi shafach hamasei al b'nai, did not pour it out on the son itself. So this is the mashal, this is the analogy. Kach Amru L'Asaf. This is what Asaf is saying in this Psalm of Tehillim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu hechrev heichal. They told Asaf, Hashem destroyed the temple, Mikdash, V'ata yeshiv Mezamer. He's like the pedagogue, he's the one that's singing. Amar Lahem, he says, Mezamer ani, I am singing Shafach HaKadosh Baruch Hu chamasai al ha'etzim v'al ha'avanim. Hashem poured it out on the stones and the wood. V'loi shafach chamasai al Yisrael, and he didn't pour it out on the Jewish people. Like it says, Vayatzis Eish B'Tzion, that the fire was ignited and turned on onto Tzion, V'Toicha Yisodisah, and it consumed the foundations. So this is one. This is what we just mentioned from Rashi, but this is the full picture. It gives you the example of the father and the son. That's Rashi. And now we go to Taisvus. Taisvus has a whole different example, the way he explained this Mizmor L'Asaf. So where it says base, Taisvus. Ach yesh b'medrash, but there's a medrash that says, She'asaf amar shira, Asaf was singing al shetavu ba'aretz she'areha. It says that when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, most of it was actually destroyed or burnt, but the gates of the Beis Hamikdash, they sunk into the ground. Tavu ba'aretz she'areha. So what does it say in the Medrash? Mashal l'shivcha, another analogy of a maidservant, sheholcha l'shayv mayim in be'er. She went to draw some water from the well. V'nafal kado lebe'er. Her jug, her pitcher fell into the well. V'haisa mitzta'eres u'baycha. And she's sitting there and crying. She's in deep pain. She says, now I don't have my jug. How am I going to get the water? Ad shebasa shivchas hamelach l'shayv. Until the king's maidservant comes to draw some water. Ubiyada kli shel zav. Now she's not coming with an earthenware pitcher or some inexpensive. She's coming with a kli shel zav, with a golden utensil or jug. V'nafal oisai kli sham. And then that keli, that utensil, falls into the well. Hischila harishayna l'shayrer. So the first girl starts singing. V'amran, she says, Ad achshav lo yisi svura sheyosi shum adam kadi shehu shel cheres. I gave up on my jug. Who's going to come and start going into the well to take out my jug?
You're surely going to get the golden jugs eventually.
Exactly. So he says, V'achshav misha yotzi oisei shel zav, whoever's going to take out the one of gold, yotzi kadi imai, will also take out my jug with it. So what is this an example for? Kach b'nei Korach shayu beluim. We know that the story of Korach, the sons of Korach, were swallowed into the earth. Kishera'u shetavu ba'aretz sha'areha. When they saw that the gates of the Beis Hamikdash were swallowed into the ground, Amru Shira, they started singing. Amru, they said, Misha yotzi ha'sha'arim, whoever will take out the gates of the Beis Hamikdash, yotzi gam my son, will also take us out. Lekach amar Asaf Mizmar. That's why Asaf said the song, Shehu mimishpachas Korach, because Asaf was of the family of Korach. So this is a whole different interpretation than Rashi. Rashi is saying it's a song about the Beis Hamikdash. We're happy that Hashem let it out on the building and not on the Jewish people. Here, this is more of a personal thing. Asaf is from the family of Korach, and he's saying that, and the temple gates are down under. So if they're going to come up, we'll come up with them. And now, either way, what does this have to do with Kibud Avim? Avimi is thinking about this in the middle of honoring his father while his father is dozing off. So how does this relate to the mitzvah of Kibud Avim? His explanation on Mizmor L'Asaf. So we'll look at Gimel. Istaya milsa v'darash Avimi Mizmor L'Asaf. So the Marsha says, L'pirush ha-taisvis necha. He says, according to Taisvis, it fits perfectly. Mishum dekiyim Avimi mitzvahs kibud av, because Avimi fulfilled the mitzvah of honoring his father, Zacha lahach drasha shadarash. That's why he expounded this kapitel, that Asaf said Mizmar, Mishum kvaid beis avaisav habluim shiyalu im hasha'arim b'mheir v'yameinu amen. According to Taisvis' commentary, he was speaking about the honor of his parents, of his family, because the sons of Korach are stuck there in the ground. So Asaf, by saying this Mizmor L'Asaf, that just like the gates will come up, also my family, the Bnei Korach, will come up, Avimi is explaining this while he's doing Kibud Av, because just like Avimi is honoring his father, Asaf is also honoring his ancestors.
So who's Asaf that he gets so much mention?
So that's a great question. Who is Asaf? In Tehillim, there's a lot of psalms by Asaf. Some say that he is a Levi. He is actually one of the Leviim singing in the times of David. And he composed a lot of songs, and David chose them and put them in Tehillim. Some people say that he is, in the Torah mentions that there's Avi Asaf. There's a person, Avi Asaf, from the sons of Korach. And this would be a descendant of Korach's family. Also in Tehillim, there's a lot of songs from the Bnei Korach, from the sons of Korach. So right now we're trying to explain, what does the song Mizmor L'Asaf have to do with Avimi and his honoring his father? And we're explaining here, according to Taisvis, just like Avimi was honoring his father, Asaf was honoring his ancestors by saying that ultimately they will come out of the ground, just like the gates will come out of the ground. So that's how these two things relate. Now what about Rashi? Rashi said that it's connected to the Beis HaMikdash, the song that Hashem let it out on the house and not on the Jewish people. How does that have to do with Kibud Avim? How does that have to do with honoring the parents? And so let's look at 4, Ben Yehoyada. V'oid nearly b'siyata d'shmaya, the last paragraph, al pia tam d'isa b'medrash, based on the medrash explanation. Masha Amar Asaf Mizmor b'churban Beis HaMikdash. Why is Asaf saying the psalm and song in the time of the destruction? Because he sees how Hashem is doing a favor and doing something good for the Jewish people. He's pouring out his wrath on the wood and stone, and not to destroy them. If we look at the analogy in the Medrash, it's an example of a father and son. So here we see already the connection to Kibud Avim. Sha'ahav Oisai, that he loved him, Ayin Sham. Ulachain, therefore, Bishvil Shahera Avimi Ata Avasayim Aviv. Avimi was demonstrating his love to his father. The Havagachin, he was bending down and waiting for him until he woke up. L'chach zacha lidrish b'mizmar zed Asaf hamedaver ba'ad ava sheyesh bein av hu HaKadosh Baruch Hu ubein habein shehem Yisrael. Because Avimi was expressing this love between father and son, that enabled him, or Hashem, he got this divine assistance to understand the connection and love between Hashem and the Jewish people, even in the time of the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. So it's very interesting that either way, which means both according to Rashi and Taisvis, and they're connected to Avim, to honoring Kibud Avim, honoring father and mother. According to Rashi, that he was speaking about the relationship between Hashem, the Father, and the Son, the Jewish people. And according to Taisvis, it's the descendant of Korach honoring his ancestors that they'll ultimately come out of the ground. So that's how it relates to Kibud Avim, to honoring father and mother. On the next page, the Pnei Yeshua.
These are all stories of redemption. And I'm curious to know what's the direct relationship between Kibbutz Abba and redemption.
And redemption. You're pointing out another connection here, that both of them were redeeming the sons of Korach and redeeming the Jewish people, right?
Yeah.
And how would that relate to redemption? Okay, maybe we'll see. That's something to think about. Now, the very interesting here, the Gemara says that it was Kapitel Ayin Tes, Psalm 79, right? Because it says, Mizmor L'Asaf, Elokim Bo Goyim Benachal Asecha. Now, one of the commentaries, the Pnei Yeshua says, I don't think it's Psalm 79. He says, I think it's Psalm 73. Because in Tehillim, we mentioned, there's multiple songs by Asaf. So he says, how do we know that he explained Mizmor L'Asaf 79? Maybe it was Mizmor L'Asaf 73. If you look in the Tehillim, starting from Psalm 73, it's all Mizmor L'Asaf for like another 11 chapters.
Questions about how songs are counted?
Ayin Gimel,
Ayin Gimel,
I seem to recall something
page
about.
88.
I seem to recall people saying that some songs could be broken in half, or some songs could be combined. There's of course no number.
Yeah, I think we had it in the Ein Yaakov actually, how many verses there was.
Yeah.
So page 88, so very interesting that if you look at Ayin Beis, the last few words are Kalu Tefilos David ben Yishai. This is the end of the prayers of David, the son of Yishai, which would mean, it would sound like that till here, these are David's words by himself, and then from book 3, he's taking it from other people.
this is today's reading.
Amazing, it's 14, yeah? That's from today's section. So from Ayin Gimel all the way until, let's see, where does the Mizmor L'Asaf finish? It could be actually that 79 is the last, no?
83 is still one.
Is still, okay, so till 83 is the last. So from 73 until 83, they're all from Asaf. So let's see, so the Pnei Yeshua says, I think that we're talking about a different psalm that he was explaining. He wasn't explaining Psalm 79, rather Psalm 73. Let's see where he's going with this. So on top of the page, Pnei Yeshua, he says, V'lav hainu mizmar, we can still keep it, but he says, V'lav hainu mizmar ayin tes shekasvei Rashi. He says, it's not Psalm 79 that Rashi and Tosfos are referring to. Ela Mizmor Ayin Gimel. It's actually Psalm 73. Now the Pnei Yeshua was a lot after Rashi and Tosfos, so this is pretty bold to say different than Rashi and Tosfos, but he was obviously on that level to be able to say this.
I think he was.
Yeah, let's see. He was a very holy person. So Shein Tchilas Dvarav Shel Asaf. This is the opening words of Asaf. She'amar Vani Kim'at Natayu Ragloi. He says, my feet have almost stumbled. Ki kinesi b'heilulim, because I'm jealous of those who are just enjoying themselves and having a good time. If we look at Psalm 73, what is it about? He's discussing the situation where the goyim and people that are not doing the right things are really having a good time in this world. Kind of like, why do the people the wicked, why do they prosper and the righteous suffer? Hini Eila Rashayim, B'kol HaMizmar Shaya Mitztar Ma'od Al Arichos HaGolus. He was very pained by the Golus, why the exile is so long. K'dechsiv Nami Ad Avay Al Mikdash Ekel. I'm waiting till I'll be back to the Beis HaMikdash. Avina Lachrisam. I'm hoping till the end. Ukima'at Roiv Mizmori Asaf B'Sefer Sheni. Most of the Psalms of Asaf, Hakoil Al Arichos HaGolus HaAchrein. It's mostly discussing why this Golus is so long and how to deal with the challenges of exile. Biyad b'nei Esav, and here we connect also to our parsha, in the hands of the sons of Esav. U'mesayim sham ba'osei HaMizmor. If we look at the end of Psalm 73, it says, Ba'atzascha sancheni, with your advice you should guide me. Va'achar kavod tikacheni, and after honor you shall take me. What is this saying? V'isa b'medrash, Amar Rabbi Yehuda b'Meseira, ba'atzas Torah tancheni, you should guide me with the advice and wisdom of Torah. Va'achar kavod tikacheni, what honor is it referring to? Kavod gadol shekibed Esav es hayrav. We should get the honor that Esav got for honoring his parents. That's what Asaf is saying. Sha'ata asad lahaleseinu, that you and the...
Korach usually means teachers.
Sometimes it can mean teachers, or sometimes it means parents. Rav Huna b'shem Reb Nechunya,
It's an interesting choice of words.
I guess parents should also be teachers. They,
No, but I mean, Esau rejected his father's ways, rejected Torah, rejected all the mitzvahs, and here it's using the word for a teacher. That he honored his teacher.
Hayrav over here means his parents. Sometimes Hayrim could mean parents.
Okay, it just,
And
is there another word they could have used?
You could say Avim. I guess it's shorter to say Hayra. Hayra could also mean like Batahar, means to become pregnant, or it could mean different things.
Okay. I see a connection there that maybe you're saying that I shouldn't be worried about, but I found it interesting.
Okay. I'm sure that he also learns from his parents also. Esav, he didn't follow it after Bar Mitzvah, but I'm sure he was taught by his parents.
You learn mitos, I guess. Loyalty.
Yeah. Also, we see it says that Esav, he would ask questions about Meiser to his father. How do you tithe from salt and the straw?
Yeah, but that was to mock.
But he knew something to ask the question, just if he didn't know anything. So Rav Huna b'shem Reb Nechunya says like this: Icher kvoidei shel Yaakov ba'olam hazeh, that Hashem delayed the honor of Yaakov in this world, b'shvil kibud gadol shekibud Esav es hayrav. That why was Yaakov only rewarded much more in Olam Haba, and Esav got his reward down here in this world? Because of kibud av, because Esav was he excelled in this mitzvah of honoring his parents. Ayin shem b'yalkut oid barichos. So what is the Pnei Yeshua saying here? That from Psalm Ayin Gimel, from 73, Asaf is discussing the time of Golus, why the Rishoyim, why the wicked, they have it good, and the Tzaddikim have a hard time. And he's explaining that this all relates to Yaakov and Esav. That Yaakov, Jewish people, we get rewarded more in Olam Haba, more in the world to come. Esav, he was good to his parents over here, so they have the upper hand in this world. And this all relates to Kibud Av, and this is what Avimi was thinking about. V'hainu mamish kein uvda d'Avimi. The same idea that we have in our Gemara in the story with Avimi, matzina nami be'esav. We find this by Esav. Shekam al aviv, Esav stood by his father. V'yamachilo yamashkeyu tamid. He would always give his father to eat and drink. V'im kain b'haim milsa mistaya milsa d'Avimi. That's why Avimi got this divine assistance in understanding the psalm. B'mizmor psukei Asaf. V'hainu nami d'chsiv Mizmor L'Asaf. Why is Asaf singing? If we're talking about a time of galus, things are hard, things are difficult, why is there a song? Why are we singing? The kivan shaloi matzinu le'esav ela mitzvah zoi. Because he says like this, we have to do a kal v'chomer from Esav. Esav only did this mitzvah. He was very good at honoring his father. And nitzin le'shalva kol kach b'olam hazeh, and he's getting such reward and such abundance in this world. If Esav got so much reward just for doing kibbud avim in this world, how much more so tzaddikim should get in this world and in the world to come? Behind the scene the medrash, and this is what the medrash concludes: Al va'achar kavei tikacheni sha'at asel aleisenu. He's saying that just like Esav was honored, we should also get this honor and many more times than Esav. So this is the Pnei Yeshua's original explanation. He's saying it's not about the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. Asaf is singing about the time of Golus, and he's saying even though it looks like the Rishoyim, the wicked, are doing much better than us, but remember that if Esav got so much reward because of Kibud Av, because of honoring his father, just for that mitzvah, how much more so we should get reward in this world and in the world to come. Look what he he refers to Rashi. He says, "Kain nirali nachain ubarur." This pshat, this interpretation seems to be very clear and correct. Ezra Hashem Yisbarach, Lulei the Rashi v'Tosfos kasu binyan acher. The only problem is that Rashi and Tosfos said that we're talking about a different psalm, the Kayel Mizmor Ayin Tes.
Talk about people.
Talking about honoring. Well, let's see.
I'm saying he's not. Here he goes contradicting these great guys. Now he's got to bring it according to his own thinking.
He's saying you have to honor, but he says. Now he's going to try to reconcile even with them. He says all the Psalms of Asaf really share the same idea. He's saying it starts with Ayin Gimel through Ayin Tes and further. It's all discussing the Golos. So Ayin Tes is talking about the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, but already starting from 73, we're already talking about the Golos and exile. So he says, I'm not really arguing with Rashi, I'm just expanding the idea. He says, I still hold strongly that he's referring to the beginning of Asaf's Psalms, and probably relates to all the Mizmor L'Asaf. The Ayri B'Hayinyana, because they're all talking about the same idea, the same thing. If you look closely at the Tehillim, you'll find it. And here he adds a very amazing line. Maybe Hashem left this spot open for me. Which means sometimes if you don't find a commentary that brought this idea earlier, it doesn't mean that it's wrong. Maybe Hashem left it for me to come up with this chiddush, to come up with this idea on Torah. So he's not arguing with Rashi. He's saying, I recognize that Rashi and Tosfos say they were talking about Ayin Tes 79, but I feel like that this is a right, correct pshat over here.
Able to expand that.
Yes, and maybe Hashem left the space open for me to explain this pshat. So this is the Pnei Yeshua. So already up to 3. This might be what Avimi was thinking about. All these different psalms, Mizmor L'Asaf. Which one was he thinking about? Now here we're going to dive a little bit deeper, but into the ground. Ready? Tavu ba'aretz sha'areha. So we mentioned that this was from Tosfos that the gates of the Beis HaMikdash sunk into the ground. Why? Why specifically the gates? Why were they preserved and the other parts of the Beis HaMikdash were destroyed? Why are they still under the ground? Medrash Agada. Lefi shecholku kavod la'arayin. Because the gates gave respect and honor to the Arayin. To Shenamar Su'u Sheyarim Rasheichem. It says that the gates should lift their heads. Lefichach Laishalta Bahem Birya. Therefore, no creation had any control over them, but Tavu Ba'aretz, and they sunk into the earth. What is this honor that the gates gave to the Arayin? And if you think about what do these words mean? Su'u Sha'arim Rasheichem. The gates should lift their heads. Do gates have heads? How do you lift the head of a gate? What does that even mean? Su'u Sha'arim Rasheichem.
Well, you put up a wall around something and the gates have the honor of letting people into it.
So that's something, but usually you open the gate. Do you give credit to the gate for being there? Like what are they doing that they deserve this reward? And specifically for the Arayin, like everything goes into the Beis HaMikdash, not only the Arayin. What's the story over here? So there's actually a story that the gates wouldn't open. It says when Shlomo brought the Arayin, they stood closed. That's another story, but that wouldn't seem like an honor. That would seem like the opposite. So the next paragraph here, a very interesting story. Ayin b'medrash Rabbah parshas v'era reish parsha ches ki pasuk zeh su'u sh'arim rasheichem Amra Shloimei b'shasha asa aron shel yud amos. So when Shloimei he built the aron of 10 amos, va'pesach shel Beis HaMikdash hayagam kin yud amos. The problem is, we had this story with the couch. You can't get the couch through the door. The aron was exactly the height as the doorway. The aron was 10 amos, and the entrance was 10 amos. You can't get 10 amos, go into 10 amos. You need a little bit more space. Amar, so what did Shlomo say? Lift up your heads, the gates, you need to go a little higher. V'yavai melech hakavod, and the king of honor, which is a reference to kinei la'aron maluchos, which is referring to the aron with the tablets. V'nasu atzman, the gates listened to Shlomo. V'chnis, they picked themselves up. V'chnisu sa'aron, they were able to enter, bring in the aron. V'zohi hakavana shacholku kavod aron, and this is the intention that the gates gave honor to the aron. It's a very interesting story. Actually, I didn't know the story before, that this is what we mean, Su'usharim Rashechem. They have to actually, the gates had to go a little bit higher to allow the Aron to go through. Now, before we gave this interesting example of the jug falling into the water, right? And the one who's going to take this one out is going to take out the other one. So he says like this. The pasuk that speaks about the gates, it says, Tavu ba'aretz she'areha. This is where it says Vav. Maris ayin nachal eshkol, one of the commentaries. It says, Rosh Teves, she'areha ibed v'shiber, gimatria Korach.
What is Rosh Hashanah?
The acronym. Rosh Teves of she'areha ibed v'shibar, which is referring to the gates that they're lost and broken. Gematria Korach is the gematria, the same numerical value as Korach, im ha'koilel. You have to add one more for the word, the whole word. So now he's going to say something, amazing story here. Ait sarach lahavin, amai itzderich mashal hazeh, umashal yimshal banu mashal l'shivcha. What's this whole example of the maidservant that went to find the jug? Is it hard to understand what the sons of Korach were saying? They said, when the gates will come up, we'll come up with them. Why do you have to give this whole example of the well and losing the jug? The tiske loymar kishera'u shetavu ba'aretz sha'arim. It would be enough, it would be sufficient to say that when the gates sunk into the earth, amru shira mishi yetzi asharim. They could have just said, whoever will take out the gates will take us out. The efshar liyashiv hakoil, we're able to resolve this. B'masha matzasi ba'agada. I found a medrash. I don't know where this medrash is, but he found this. V'zel l'shoinai. This medrash is fascinating. Bas Chana v'nesnaba al Korach. We have Chana. She was a prophet, and she was saying prophecy about Korach. Shenamar Moirid Sha'ol Vaya'al. It says Hashem brings people down Sha'ol all the way to Gehenna and to hell Vaya'al, and He will bring them back up. Ubechol Zois Loi Hayim Aminim. People didn't believe Chana. What do you mean? He's deep down there. How's he coming up? Ad Shenechrav Beis Hamikdash, until the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. V'nivtulu Shari Beis Hamikdash, and now the gates sunk. Shenemar Tavu Ba'aretz Sha'areha. Ubo Eitzel Korach. And here the Medrash says that the gates were actually brought to Korach. The temple gates are exactly where Korach is. So he's together with them. It's not just in two separate places. This Medrash is saying that the gates of the Beis HaMikdash are right near Korach. And what is Korach doing there? With Tafsam. Korach is holding on to those gates. Miyad Haminu. And it took until the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash for people to believe Chana that Korach will come up. Va'amru, and they said, Kishiyalu Elu Asharim, and then people said that together with the gates, Korach and the sons of Korach will come up with them. Af anu nala imoim, we will come up together. So this is a medrash that we didn't know this before. Before we thought they're in two separate places, and it's just like if you take this one out, you'll take out the other one. Here we're saying, no, Korach is holding them as, you want the gates? I'm coming up with them. Ulefiza yitzdak ma'id haremez amor. Now, this fits beautifully. Kirashatevis she'arel ibid v'shiber gematria Korach. Why is it the same numerical value in the gematria? Loimar shetavu elu ash'arim eitzel Korach. Because we're trying to say that they're actually in the same place, in the physical place. Uba'agada ze yesh lahoyer aleha. So he says, what is happening here? Damai loy haminu l'nvuas Chana. Why did people not believe Chana when she said that Korach is going to come out? And if there was room to question Chana's prophecy, how was it resolved by the story of the gates? Achein b'tziruf divrei harav Mahara Ruzanis Zal Yavai HaKol al Nachem. Based on a different rabbi, Reb Aleph Ruzanis, maybe it's Avram, Eliyahu, could be a lot of different things, says, we'll be able to explain this. It says about Korach and his sons that they will be lost from amongst the nation. Now, what does it mean lost? Are they lost, like completely gone, something that you lose and you don't find, or is it something that you lose and could be retrieved? They thought that Korach is totally lost. When Chana prophesied and said that he will come up, so now they were putting up Chana against Moshe Rabbeinu. In the Torah it says that they will be lost from the nation, and it sounds like they're not going to come back up, they're not going to get any portion in Olam Haba. And Chana is saying they're going to come back up, Vayal, they'll be picked up. So they're like not sure what's going to be with Korach, is it going to come up or not? In Velav Rafi Yudayu means yes and no is weak in their hand. It's like yes, no, they're not sure what's with Korach. Ad shenechrav Beis Hamikdash, until the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, v'nivlu asharim, and the gates were swallowed, ubol yad Korach l'tfasam, they come to Korach's hand and he grabs them. Az Avinu, then they understood, ki vayevdu mitoich hakol kaveda mispakeshes. Then they understood that when Moshe Rabbeinu said they will be lost is not forever, because Korach is holding on to them. So if you want to get back the gates, you're going to have to get back Korach.
So Korach did a sin so bad that he lost his share in the world to come. And then the Jews did a sin so bad that their sin paralleled Korach's, but God has promised not to destroy the Jews. So Korach is saying like, hey, look, we're no worse than they are, and you promised them redemption, and so we deserve redemption too. And that could be the mashal of the gates.
See, now you're tying everything together.
Yeah.
That you're saying if the gates could come up and
the
Hashem
gates represented, not just redemption, but that if you're going to redeem this sin, you should redeem our sin.
Very good.
Yeah.
So on the next page, V'haya la'os.
It goes again to my idea of the gates being a place where people get let in.
Mm-hmm.
So the gates are.
It's an entryway.
It's an entryway, yeah.
It's coming.
You've got a wall. You've got to put up a wall.
We're going to leave a way open for you. We're going to let you back in.
Exactly.
V'haya la'os shabo asharim liyadei. What is a sign that Chana?
Sorry, don't they call the tiers the tiers can enter the throne from underneath? They burrow into the throne. Don't they call that a gate also?
Like by Ne'ilah, the gates of.
No, there's 12 paths to the throne of God, each one for its own tribe. But there's a 13th.
That includes
tiers.
all of them.
Is that not a gate?
Yes, okay. Gates again.
So again, it ties all together. Just making sure I was talking about a gate, not just a burrow or a wormhole.
Right. Okay, so now, based on this idea, he says like this, on the next page, what was the sign? How do we know that Korach is actually going to be redeemed and he's going to come back up? Because he's Shabo Asharim Liyadei. Hashem made this miracle that the gates came to his hand, Utfasam, and he's grabbing onto them. V'lo al chinam, and this is not for nothing. Miracles don't happen for nothing. Ela l'hoires, this is coming to show the nevuas Chana amitis, that the prophecy of Chana is true. Shiyalu, that they will ascend, they will come back up. Umishum hachi bekavana mechuvenes bo asharim liyadei. There was a planned intent for the gates coming to Korach's hands. V'hainu ka'amri misha yotzi asharim yotzi gam meisanu. That's what we meant, that whoever takes out the gate will also take us out, because they're together in the same place. Now he goes back to the analogy. We asked before, why do we have to give this whole example of the maidservant? Yeah, it's an easy thing to say. If you take out the gates, you take out Korach. What's the point of this mashal? Lirmais, this is coming to hint. The ki heichi, the b'mashal, nafal kad shel zav, b'makim shenafal shel cheres. Where did she lose her jug? It's in the same well. The gold container that the maidservant of the king brought, and the other jug, they're both in the same well. He says that's why they brought the mashal, to show that Korach is in the same pit together with the gates.
Wow.
That's the idea. We were just using an example. Whoever will take out one will take out the other. If he's saying it's more precise, they're both in the same location. Just like in the story of the well, both jugs are kind of in the same place, in the same hole. Korach and the gates are exactly in the same place. So that's why we believe one from the other. Just like we know that the gates are going to come up, we're certain that also Korach is going to come out.
Gates fell to Korach.
The gates were brought later, to Korach.
They fell to Korach, and they didn't just fall into the earth, they fell to Korach. So, that's
Right.
it. I'm saying it sounds like the gates it was deterministic that the gates went down as far as Korach. They didn't just fall until they reached Korach. They fell to Korach.
The gates sunk into the ground and then were brought to Korach somehow under the ground.
Says who?
It says ubo, they were brought to Korach. That's the word.
So, okay, but that doesn't change much.
Yeah.
In other words, they were deliberately
Yes.
sent to Korach. Which is interesting. That means that Korach has a merit that we haven't yet really delved into. You don't think of him as having merit.
Yeah, and here we see, that's why it says that until the story, we were always questioning if Korach would have any merit. Would he actually come up?
But that implies that his arguments have merit, that his rebellion had merit.
Yeah. It
Now
says,
we got to figure out how does this incredible, he was repudiated utterly, but yet it would appear that his rebellion had some sort of merit.
so
Maybe
it,
just the merit of showing,
so
it could be
if,
as simple as the merit of showing that rebellion is wrong.
it says that Korach was very smart. He was pikeach. He was very smart, and his complaint was he wanted to raise everyone's level. He says, we are all holy. Why is Moshe and Aaron better than any of us? We're all holy. And it says he was looking too far into the future. It says that actually when Mashiach comes, we're all going to be on that level, but we weren't ready for it yet. So maybe when Mashiach comes, we'll get more respecting and honoring Hashem despite what's going on. The Akedas Yitzchak says that we see here, sometimes you could be honoring your father, but forgetting about, just focusing on that. And here we see that he was using out every moment for the study of Torah. Even while he was waiting, he was still thinking about Torah, and that's why Hashem helped him at that moment with the study of Torah. 9, the Ein Eliyahu, we mentioned before that honoring your father and mother is related to honoring Hashem, like honoring the Shekhinah. So just like if you feel the honor of your parent, you also care for the honor of Hashem. And when the Beis HaMikdash is destroyed, it's a disrespect for the Shekhinah. So that's how they're related in that way. Another thing we see that Avimi was honoring his father by himself. He didn't let anyone do it. He wanted to do it himself. And this relates to the Beis HaMikdash, that Hashem himself was the one who destroyed it, so he's going to be the one that he has to build it. If he let someone else destroy it, then he wouldn't have to build it himself. But because Hashem himself was the one who destroyed it, he has to build it. One thing from the Rebbe, it says that there's a difference between the first Beis HaMikdash and the second Beis HaMikdash. That the second Beis HaMikdash was destroyed all the way to the foundation, and some say even including the foundation. So in a way it's worse, but you see that Hashem let out all his anger in the second one. So now in the first one, because not everything was destroyed, so you see it that maybe he has still some anger on the Jewish people. But once in the second Beis HaMikdash, he let it out, that they destroyed everything all the way to the foundations. So now there's right Ada Yisod until the foundation. So now we know that all Hashem's anger is finished. He let it all out, and now it's time for rebuilding.
And we took a walk around the block.
What? And Hashem, we're still waiting.
We took a walk around the block.
We're too patient. We're like Avimi, waiting. We're just like thinking about these Tehillims while we're waiting for our Father. Now,
And we're singing.
just one more minute, if it's okay. There's so we all started with this from the Meiri, that he said that there was, Avimi thought of 12 interpretations over here on this Mizmor L'Asaf, on this song. It's interesting what we discover with different manuscripts. Someone looked this up. On the last page it says they found, this is called, they found in the Vatican manuscript 111. And it's a little bit hard to read. It's actually not that bad. If you look on the third line, it says, you see Istaya Milsa, V'darash Avimi Mizmor L'Asaf, V'tamnaya Api. Here it says that Avimi expounded this psalm in 8 different ways. Of Mizmor L'Asaf, Lishna Achrina, there's another version, Ashri Smi Medarech V'tamnaya Api, that he expounded the Kuf Yates, Psalm 119, in 8 ways. So the person that was writing this article was trying to understand, like, what is the number 12 over here? Like, why is Avimi explaining it in 12 different ways, or 8 different ways? It's interesting. And while he was writing it the first time, he didn't get the answer. Then later he wrote this, look on the last paragraph. Can it be an accident that there are exactly 12 chapters of Psalms which begin with some variation of Mizmor L'Asaf, or L'Asaf Mizmor? These are Psalms 50 and 73 to 83. So perhaps we can turn to Psalm 50 as the first time it says Mizmor L'Asaf. For the Meiri, this girsa means nothing more than identifying the Mizmor L'Asaf in the category of the 12 chapters bearing his title. So maybe when it said he expounded Mizmor L'Asaf in 12 ways, he was referring to all 12 Psalms said by Avimi. And then we have this other version that says 8 ways, so go figure what he was thinking and how many different ways there are to explain. 12, 8, either way. It's
8 is a transcendent number.
Yes, but it's really amazing that this was his reward of doing kibbud avim, that in the middle of honoring his father and waiting for him, he's having all these divine assistants with explaining this pasuk of Mizmor L'Asaf, and maybe he was thinking some of the things that we mentioned here. Maybe he was thinking something else. Who knows? But it's really amazing, the story of Korach. I never knew that he was there together with the gates, holding on to them. Very,
Reminds me of, who was it who was holding on to the Teva?
Og?
Yeah.
Og was holding on there. Yeah. Yeah.
Clinging to redemption.
Yeah.
A bad guy clinging to redemption, hoping it will save him too.
Yeah. Clinging. All right, we should have the Gula. We should have the redemption. The gates should come back up. Korach, no one's lost.